Hey there folks, my name is Luke. Welcome to this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review, where today we're in Moose. Now at the moment I'm driving out to Lone Wolf Mountain, and that is where we will talk about good old Moose here. We will go over basically a 2019 update in regards to this truck. This truck is awesome. Some people may be interested in finding one. Well, there are some pros and cons to consider. Trust me, I know, because this is my daily driver. I will see you all at Lone Wolf Mountain. So I finally made it to the top of Lone Wolf Mountain here. I did have to pull out the chainsaw before I got really anywhere and cut myself a path. There's a big fallen tree down there. I will have to get some buddies, some chainsaws, take care of that this weekend. Luckily, I had a chainsaw with me. So, right here, this is Moose. This is my 1986 military army truck. And with this truck here, this is legit military surplus. This is an M1008, also known as a D30. And yes, she is sweet. This is everybody's favorite army truck. There is a civilian version of this truck known as the K30. This is, of course, military grade, upgraded, super heavy. There are some differences. We will be talking about that. Now, I have had good old Moose here for a little bit over 2 years, going on 3 years actually. There's a lot to like about this truck, but if you are considering getting one for yourself, there are some things that you need to be aware of. There are things that I like about this truck, there are things that I don't like about this truck, and in this episode, we are touching upon everything. This is the 2019 Moose Update. So let's talk about some of the differences here compared to the civilian version, the K30. So D30 versus K30. Now, first off, the K30 is a 1-ton truck. The D30 is not a 1-ton truck. It's a 1.25 tons. The military refers to this as a 5/4 ton. So this truck has been upgraded for military use. With some military variants of this truck, it can be even heavier than a 5/4 ton. I purchased this truck back in 2016, and I know as soon as I received her, I had to come up with a name for her. And Moose was absolutely fitting. Big, slow, powerful, smelly. That's Moose. You may be wondering why I refer to Moose as a she, opposites attract, that sort of thing. It's a topic for a different conversation, but for most people, it's the opposite. If you're a guy, it's a she. If you're a woman, it's a he. So there you go. I have put thousands and thousands of miles on this truck, and I know this baby inside and out. It's provided a lot of joy, a lot of fun. It's provided some irritation at the same time. And with that being said, why don't we talk about the history of this truck just a little bit. Now, I've done previous episodes about this truck where I've gone into a lot of detail about the engine, the ratios, the axles, all that stuff. That is not what this episode's all about. So if you want more information, I'll put some links down below for you. When it comes to this truck as a military piece of hardware, this is one of the most successful military vehicles of all time. In fact, this truck is still in service 30 years later after being introduced. How about that? Once these trucks were primarily decommissioned for the Humvee, they went all over the world, all over the United States. National Guards got them, fire departments got them, National Forestry Services got them, they went to other militaries, and so on. I think that is an awesome testament to this truck and just how good it is. It's still being used today, all around the world. And that says a lot, it really does. Now that we got all that information out of the way, let's talk about my updates, my thoughts, feelings about this truck from over the last couple of years. Let's start off with miles per gallon, fuel economy, and so on. This truck has a non-turbo 6.2 liter diesel. Yes, that's a big engine. But this thing gets awesome gas mileage, stock. Now that's very important to consider. This is a stock truck. It's the right size tires for the era, for the truck. Nothing's been messed with. It's a stock truck. Good old Moose here will get over 20 miles to the gallon if driven lightly, not too heavy on the throttle. In general, that is how I drive this truck. Over 20 miles per gallon with a CUCV is very, very common as long as they're stock. Once you begin altering these trucks, of course, the mileage starts going down. You add bigger tires, you drive a little bit harder, the suspension and so on, you can expect some impacts. When I'm talking to people about this truck and they hear that it's a 6.2 liter, most people think that it's a hog on diesel, but that's not the case at all. It's actually very, very good. When it comes to driving this truck, it is a ton of fun. First off, it's stock, and it's also in very good condition. It's a hoot. It's fun to drive this thing around town. It's fun to go on the back roads. Once people begin messing with these trucks, that experience can change. They add the huge tires, they jack it up. But what most people fail to realize is that when you change one thing, you have to change something else. And most of the time, people don't do that. So it doesn't take long before you have this vehicle that has some issues. It's very rough riding, the fuel economy is poor, and so on. Most of these trucks that you will find today have been altered in some way. And unfortunately, most of those owners haven't put the time or money into altering these trucks the right way. So you get these trucks that are really clapped out. Luckily, good old Moose here is in awesome shape, and she's a blast to drive. Talking about being fun to drive, this thing gets a ton of looks, lots of attention. Just about anywhere I go, I end up having conversations. I actually met a guy the other day at the park. He came up to me, started talking about the truck. He used to drive them all the time when he was in the Army. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. When it comes to speed, the 6.2 is known for being a little bit slow, and folks, it is what it is. It is pretty slow. Now for myself, I'm not a fast driver. I'm not very aggressive. It gets up to speed just fine. For town driving, city driving, perfect. Back roads, perfect. Off-road, perfect. For interstate driving, forget about it. If you take this truck out on the interstate, you are not going to have a good time. I promise you that, because this truck was not built for speed. If you need speed, go with the civilian variant or look into finding a 1028. Something else that you need to consider with these military trucks is that there's virtually no creature comforts at all. There's no radio, there's no insulation. This thing makes a ton of noise outside of the truck and inside the truck. Talking about stereos for a second, I'm not sure why you would want to put one in a truck like this. It's so loud in there, you wouldn't be able to hear it anyways, unless it was like full blast. I mean, if you're going to take the time to insulate the hell out of this truck, it would make sense, but otherwise, forget about it. Now, talking about driving this truck here, and namely speed, there are some things that you really need to consider before you go out and purchase a truck like this. This thing is not built for speed, not at all. Now, of course, I'm talking about stock configurations. At stock, this thing is not meant for speed. You can alter these. You can change the ratios, transmissions, and so on. You're looking at a top speed of 65 miles per hour. Have I gotten this truck up to 65 miles per hour before? No. The highest that I've got this truck up to is about 55, and it was screaming at 55 miles per hour. At 55 miles per hour, this truck is simply too loud, and you are approaching max RPM. For myself, I'm happy driving this truck 50 miles per hour and lower, and it does well for my needs. I'm out in the country, I'm on the back roads, everything's super windy. You're not going to do more than that anyways. Talking about Moose here being slow, she is slow in other ways than simply speed. It takes a while for this truck to warm up so you can actually hit the road and go do what you need to do. You have to hop in, fire up the glow plugs, wait for that. Then it has to high idle, and then once it drops down, you can drive. But even then, you need to take it easy for roughly the first 10 miles with this truck. You really gotta let it warm up. You have to keep in mind this truck is over 30 years old. And if you want to get one of these, you have to baby it, and that's for sure. I will talk about maintenance in just a minute, but yeah, this truck is slow in many, many ways. Now, when it comes to cold weather, I've had no issues with good old Moose here starting, even all the way down to -15 below zero. This truck has always started. Now, of course, when it's that cold, it can be quite a bit of fun getting her going. There's a lot of smoke involved, but she will definitely run. The truck does have a heater, it has a fan, has no air conditioning. The heater works very well, but there is something that you need to keep in mind. There's no insulation in this truck. So you could be driving around 0 degrees, the heater's going, your top half is warm, and your feet are absolutely frozen. I mean, it's like riding in a tin can because there is no insulation. You're driving down the road, your feet are on the floorboards, cold air is rushing underneath, and your feet will be absolutely frozen. It can be quite miserable at times. You may be wondering, what about driving this truck in the summertime in warm weather, warm areas? There's no air conditioning, and if you live in a hot area, I would not recommend this truck unless you put an air conditioner in it. While you're driving down the road, windows down, fine. Come to a stop and you will sizzle in this thing. Essentially, this truck is just a tin can. There's no insulation here. That sun comes in, it will absolutely toast you. Last year on the way home from here, I got stuck in an accident. And it was one of those situations where I was just right in the sun. It was just perfectly coming through the window. That had to have been one of the hottest, sweatiest situations I've ever been in. Essentially, I was just like roasting in my own juices. It was unbelievably hot. Now, one thing that I love about this truck is the bed, the full-size bed. This thing is humongous. You could fit just about anything in here, and it makes for an awesome farm truck. Like here for Lone Wolf Mountain, I've cut down trees, thrown them in the back, hauled them off. This thing's a beast, and there's a ton of space back here. There's tie-down points all over the place. It's fantastic. While talking about driving this truck, I have to say that I love the bench seat. There is nothing better than driving down the road with your girl at your side. It's fantastic. I love the bench seat for that reason alone. Now, with this truck being a military truck, you do have the 2 rifle mounts. To be honest, I never used them, not once. Now let's talk about off-road driving. Now, these trucks are very popular for multiple reasons. First off, they're military. Second, they're cool. Third, they're made with heavy-duty components. And it's because of those components specifically, these trucks are favorited for off-road use because they do such a great job. Now, of course, this is a full-size truck. This thing is huge. It takes up a lot of space on the trail. So do keep that in mind. You have the rear locker, and with good tires, this thing will go absolutely anywhere. These trucks are known for climbing mountains, going straight up. And personally, I've taken this thing off-road many times, and it works so well. I've never got stuck, never had an issue. It will come straight up this mountain here, up straight grass and mud, no issues. Talking about the 4-wheel drive system, you do have to manually lock the hubs, then switch over to 4-wheel drive. It's not very complicated. It does kind of suck to have to get out and manually lock the hubs and then pop it into 4-wheel drive. In the wintertime, when it's snowing and it's cold, it's not that bad. But in the summertime, in the middle of a pouring rainstorm, that can be pretty awful. Either you sit still and you don't pop it in 4-wheel drive when you need it, or you get out into the rain and get soaking wet. Those are real issues that I've dealt with this truck, namely here at Lone Wolf Mountain, or when I'm out four-wheeling. All in all, these trucks are amazing for off-road use. Fantastic for snow. Of course, tires play a huge role in that. When it comes to sand, you can always air down your tires. You'll be just fine. You may be wondering about towing, and that is something that I've never done. It has the Pinnacle hitch on it. I've never towed anything, never had a need to, so no comment. Now, with that being said though, I do love the tow shackles on the front and also on the back. Those are attached directly to the frame of the truck. And I have used this truck to pull stumps out of the ground, pull trees, all sorts of stuff. I've even used this truck to pull other trucks that are stuck in the mud out. Those tow shackles make a huge difference. They are awesome. They are also very expensive. Original tow shackles for this truck are about $50 a piece. So let's talk about maintenance for a second. I've had this truck going on 3 years. What about maintenance? Well, this thing does require some work, and roughly every year I spend $500 to keep this truck going. Most of my issues have dealt with leaking. This is a Detroit diesel, and the saying goes, if it's not leaking, it's empty, and that is true. For myself, I might be strange, call me weird, but I can't stand the idea of this truck outside leaking oil. So I've done everything in my power to get it to quit. Right now, it's not leaking anything. I just had oil lines replaced, everything's good to go, and even that wasn't an expensive fix. The one thing that did cost a ton of money to fix on this truck were the brakes. When I bought it, I was told this truck would need some brakes fairly soon, and it needed brakes all around. This truck has drum brakes. Drum brakes are extremely expensive to fix. If you know anything about cars, trucks, being a mechanic and so on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I bet you can even estimate what I paid to have this truck fixed up. Since I purchased this truck, the brakes have continued to get worse and worse, and it finally got to the point where I had to get them fixed. So that was a very expensive process. So if you are considering one of these trucks, make sure to inspect the brakes, check them out, because there's a potential there for a lot of issues and a lot of money being needed to really get this truck up and going out on the road. Otherwise, this truck has been extremely reliable. I've never had it not start. I take this truck out for 100-mile drives all the time. Lone Wolf Mountain here is 50 miles away from my home. So 50 miles in, 50 miles out, 100 miles. I do this all the time, usually about once a week. I drive out here in good old Moose. No issues ever. None at all. These trucks are known for vibrating. They're vibrating machines. It's a powerful engine. This truck vibrates, and they will oftentimes vibrate bolts loose and so on. I did have one issue with a vibrating loose bolt, and that was from the power steering. A bolt actually shook its way out and started grinding itself on a belt. So I was kind of smelling rubber, the steering was making a funny noise, so I had to get that fixed as well. When I purchased this truck, I did have new headlights put in because headlights from 1986 are pretty dim. Now, talking about maintenance, because these are military variants of civilian trucks, the parts are super easy to find. They're also fairly inexpensive. Never have I had an issue with finding parts for good old Moose here. One thing that you need to keep in mind about this truck is that it is a simple machine. There is virtually no electronics in this truck except for one piece, and that is the glow plug card. That is the only piece of electronics in this truck. Otherwise, it's purely mechanical. There's nothing else electrical. Now, if you're from an area that is concerned about emissions, this is not the truck for you because this has nothing installed on it as far as emissions go. Before we hop out of here, we do need to talk about water leaks because that is a very common issue with these trucks. You have to keep in mind, these trucks were not made for civilians. These are military trucks, so it's the bare bones, bare basics, and these things are known for leaking water into the cabin. Usually it comes out on the floorboards on both sides. This is extremely common, and that is why you do not want to put down floor mats on a truck like this. If you find a truck that has floor mats, you need to make sure that whoever did it made sure that they put the time and the energy in to prevent this truck from leaking water into the cabin. In my opinion, you do not want to take that chance because these trucks leak water. It is a simple fact. Now, mine leaks just a little bit. In the heaviest of rain, it may leak a little bit. Never a puddle, but you can see that the metal is actually wet. Now let's talk about rarity and expense, because over the years, these trucks have become even harder to find and even more expensive. A clapped out, rusted out, abused piece of shit will cost you over $10,000 in many cases. You will often find these trucks in terrible condition, they don't even run, and you're looking at $6,000 to $7,000. For a really good one that's stock, you can expect to pay over $12,000. Trucks that have been modified typically sell for less because most people do not want a modified truck. When people are modifying things, there's no guarantee to the craftsmanship that went into that modification. There's no telling what they had to rig up to make it work. You change one thing, you do have to change and alter other things for it to balance out. And if you don't, you're just gonna wear out that truck. There will be problems down the road for you. When I purchased my truck back in 2016, I paid less than $10,000 for it. And if I wanted to sell this truck, I would easily ask for over $12,000. No doubt about it. And I would get it too. So let me go ahead and just pretty much finish this up, everybody. This truck has a cool factor to it. It's an awesome looking truck. It's an intimidating looking truck. People have told me that when I come up behind them, it's intimidating because the truck is huge. It's loud. I love it. I really do. This is Moose. Yes, it's a leaky truck. It requires a lot of work. The only issue that I have with my truck right now is that the left signal bulb just went out. So I need to get a new one. I'll replace that tomorrow whenever I get the time. But that's the only issue with this truck. As mentioned before, I have had issues with it. It's an old truck. It's over 30 years old. It's going to have issues. But the thing is, if you can get one of these trucks, one that's in good condition, and you take care of it, it will last you forever, and it won't cost you much money. On average, I spend roughly $500 a year keeping this thing going, and that's not bad. Recently, I test drove 2 newer Tacomas. One was a 2017 TRD, one was a 2019. I hated them both. The transmission was absolutely terrible. And it was funny, my wife was with me and she's like, this is like my car. And that's not a good thing. A truck should not be like your wife's car, in my opinion. As soon as I was done driving those trucks, I was thinking to myself, man, I would never buy one of those. I want to go right back to Moose. Moose is that awesome, and it really is, for me anyways. Of course, Moose fits my needs. It may not fit yours. You may have a Tacoma. Tacomas are great. I used to own one. Too bad it rusted out. I do have a 2003 4Runner, which I absolutely love. That is my go-to vehicle. Almost 200,000 miles on it. It's going to run forever. And I'm completely getting off topic here. Anyways, this truck does have a cool factor to it. I receive a lot of attention because of it. People come up to me all the time. I have some great conversations. It's a lot of fun. It really is. Driving this truck is a blast. It handles great, brakes great, loud as hell. Super loud, it really is. I have a Bluetooth speaker that I oftentimes connect to my phone so I can listen to like podcasts and music. Driving down the road, I could barely hear it. It is loud. Let's see, anything else? When I was in Wyoming last year, I saw one of these trucks in a convoy, a military convoy, still in use. I thought that was pretty sweet. Now, let's see here. If you're going out to purchase one of these trucks, if you're looking for one, what should you be paying attention to? Of course, rust. These trucks, for the most part, are completely rusted out, depending on where they're from. Here in the South, forget about it. This truck came from Kansas. It was part of a National Guard unit, then it went to a fire station, and from there, it was repainted and sold to me. I would pay attention to the electrical system, pay attention to the glow plugs. This is a 24-volt system. Some have been converted to 12-volt. Some people have altered the glow plugs, so pay attention. The question is, when you're looking at one of these trucks, how badly has it been molested? Because when a truck has been molested, especially one this old, it can have a lot of problems. Points to mention, the engines are underpowered. The transfer case and the transmission are absolutely bulletproof. You will never go through one of these transmissions or the transfer case, ever. Outside of that, everyone, that's pretty much it. I think I've gone over just about everything with this truck, all the updates. I plan on keeping good old Moose here for a long time. Yes, it does cause me some frustrations with the leaking, but that is how it is. It's an old truck, it's going to leak, and as I mentioned before, it's a Detroit diesel. It is going to leak. So if you could live with that, awesome, awesome. I'm learning to live with that right now. If you have any questions about good old Moose here, make sure to email me. Make sure to comment down below. If you have one of these trucks, share your thoughts, share your experiences, share with the rest of the world your thoughts on good old Moose. Everybody, take care, strength and honor. I'll see you guys around.